Think we are ready to go. Hi, and welcome to the Thrillist. I'm Amy, your host, and this is a new format, so we're trying out. So, as you know, the Thrillist is my blog and podcast where I talk and review medical thriller books. And today we're going to explore a new venture and see how it works out and what we think. I've never used Google Hangout before, so kind of nervous, but should be exciting. What we're doing today is an interview, and I have no idea where to look at, where the camera is in this. But so we're going to do an interview today. I have with me Misty Spencer, who, as you've seen in the description, is a graduate student at Iowa State University and is studying education and human-computer interaction. So today we're going to talk a little bit about copyright and education. And I felt like this could be useful for those of you who read the blog or are interested in writing, because a lot of my Twitter followers are writers or teachers and those sorts of things. So I thought maybe this might be something that would be useful or that you might find interesting. So I thought it'd be a good way to kind of start the new vlogging side of things. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to be glancing down because I have my computer so I can see what you guys are saying, because I can't get it to pull up on the other computer. So I did see that someone asked what book I'm going to review next, and I'm super excited. I think we are ready to go. Hi, and welcome to the Thrillist. Oh, that's right. I forgot. And this is the format, so we're trying out. So, as you know, the podcast. One second. Where I talk and review medical thriller books. I'm sorry. I have not figured out. I've never used Google Hangout. There's a delay, a 60-second delay. I have no idea. I bet it's. Perfect. So, sorry. I was trying to pull up the comments, and it was a 60-second delay, so we didn't hear it until 60 seconds later.
So they're coming from Twitter? Or where are they coming from?
Some are from Twitter, and other people I just was like, hey, I'm going to have this going on, so if you want to sign in and post a question, or so I think we've got, well, that's what I was trying to see. I think there are a few, like 4 or 5 people who have logged in that will take questions from there. I've got some questions from Twitter that I brought along with, so that's, like I said, I'm going to be looking down a little bit at those. But just kind of start the conversation. But yeah, so someone asked what's the next book review, and that will be Resistant by Michael Palmer, who I love.
He's terrible.
You haven't even read him.
I know, I don't like his books.
How can you? Okay, he's not, we won't get into it, but he's not Robin Cook, so he's better than Robin Cook. So yeah, it'll be Resistant, and I really hope to get that done this weekend, but I'm moving, so maybe Monday, because on Tuesday, Trauma comes out, which is the Michael Palmer, Daniel Palmer book that was finished by his son. Super excited for that. Maybe I'll get a signed copy. Anyways, so yeah, so that is what's going on with the podcast next, vlog next. So this will be obviously up right now today when we're finished, and then Resistant, and then Trauma will be next week. Get out of there. There was a little angry dog who's making a lot of commotion. So, Misty, can you tell us what you want to talk about today? And let us know what it is, and then I'll ask some questions. We'll see what we get for questions and kind of go from there.
Sure. Well, first, thanks for letting me kind of take over your vlog.
Sure.
It was very beneficial. As Amy said, I am a graduate student at Iowa State University, and so this was part of this was for a course requirement. And when I was talking to her about it, she thought that this would be a great opportunity to try to merge the two between what she talks about in her podcast and copyright and what I had going on. So basically,
sorry,
I just any questions that anybody has on copyright or fair use in the classroom specifically would be the areas that I would be able to answer. A lot of my knowledge is coming from, I brought the book with me, so I guess this could be a plug. It is from this book that I had to read for school, which is the Copyright Clarity book.
I like that it's backwards. The name is backwards, right?
Yeah.
It should be. That's
Yeah.
sorry.
So copyright and clarity. And so this isn't supposed to be like legal advice. So if you have legal questions on what you could use for copyright, I don't know. But this is just to give just a general overview of what copyright law is and how you can use it in your writing or classroom, perhaps if anyone is a teacher. And yeah, that's kind of it.
Okay. So knowing that you were coming in, kind of the content that you gave me, obviously I put my feelers out to see what people thought. And then I looked a little bit too, because I felt like I should have some questions if you're going to conduct an interview. So I think we do have a question already, but I'm going to ask the first question just to kind of.
So how did you find your questions?
I Googled copyright and education, but then.
It's pretty common. A lot of people are very confused on what exactly is copyright.
Yeah, I don't really know, and a question that I had that I didn't know if you knew the answer to, because it's different. So like for my blog, for my podcast, Bones, the little image that I have, is a Creative Commons. So everyone gets to utilize that I didn't know if you knew anything about, like, is that something that happens a lot in the classroom, that people create content that then can be used, that you don't really have to, like, you just have to be like, sweet, I got this from there, versus like, does that make sense?
Yeah. So the people who will be watching this when you put this on your podcast, they're familiar with Bones, the little character.
Yeah, because when you sign up for the podcast Bones, and I send you a message, it's like, thanks for signing up.
Okay.
And that way they get updates from that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So I'm assuming that so when you say Creative Commons, you got him from Flickr?
It was, so they have like a thing that's like Flickr, like Photo Bomb. It's like 32 different ones. And so I wanted a skeleton because I thought that would be cool. And so I just looked through. It's actually from a human anatomy book from Georgia from like 1979, the images. But it's in Creative Commons, so people can use it.
Okay. Do you know, so the platform was Flickr though? Is that? Not
Flickr. It was like Photo. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. I have it saved, but it has like a Creative Commons on the bottom that I have to put on all of my stuff to give credit to.
Okay. Yeah. So where you got it is kind of doesn't really matter. The most common usually is Flickr. That's where I've gotten some Creative Commons things, and I know in the classroom, that's where people have gotten things, or even like graphic designers. Anytime that you've taken something from somewhere else, you could potentially run into some issues with copyright. One of the things with Creative Commons is that people have, in terms of Flickr anyways, what people have done is that they've either stripped their ownership or their rights, so you can actually use it any way you want as long as you give, so some people, as long as you give credit. So sometimes if you see at the bottom of the picture, you just say who it came from, and you wouldn't have to pay to get that license. I think I've seen that on your podcast or on your blog where you have just, who this person is. And then, but some people with Creative Commons, you can really do whatever you want. You can transform it, make it completely new. So the nice thing with Creative Commons is then you don't have to pay to use the image. You don't have to, no one's going to come after you and say, hey, that's mine. And it really just depends on what they want for, if they want just recognition, if they don't care. And one of the things that's really cool about that in the classroom is then it really gives people the opportunity to find photos. Like I've used them in my own coursework to find photos for like web page design. And then, so I don't have to go take those photos or take those pictures or then pay for them. So that would be an example. So like if, for example, one of the major companies where you can get photos from is called Getty's, but those you have to pay quite a bit. People pay a lot to get those photos because they own the image.
Why did it, like, it's just the picture's like that awesome? Is it like a web page like Google, you would pay like $7 billion because it's the most recognizable?
Well, with Getty's, yeah. I just didn't know for lighting.
I know,
Okay.
that's
All
why I'm
right.
trying to
Perfect.
adjust it a bit.
Yeah, so with Getty's, I think because it is such a large agency, it's an agency where people have like photographers working for them. And so then the photographers, they own that material. So it's the same thing for you authors out there where as soon as you write something, you essentially get copyright. So you don't have to apply for a copyright. It's kind of pointless actually, because as soon as you create something, it is yours. You own that material. So the same thing with photographs, you own the copyright on that. And so with Getty's, just because they're huge, a lot of like paparazzi, well, not even just paparazzi, but a lot of just photographers work for them. And so, you know, obviously that can drive up price and, you know, to pay for those images. So the thing with Creative Commons is then it's kind of like a shared space that people can use. You know, they're saying you can go ahead and use this. You don't have to pay me or anything like that.
So Grace wants to know, and I don't know if I think you've kind of covered it, but what is copyright? So she essentially, yeah, you can see the questions too.
Okay. Is this what kind of question? Is this a Twitter question?
No, these are the people. I have 5 people who logged in to chat with us today. So that's why I keep looking down, because I don't want to like miss anybody like when they log in and say hi. So yeah, so we've got like 3 questions. Since you're talking about copyright, maybe you can explain kind of what that is, and then Bill wants to know how you can use that in social media. I know we're going to talk about education, and we can kind of get to that too.
Yeah, so to answer Grace's question, so copyright, there's a lot of confusion on what exactly copyright is. Copyright, so most people think that copyright is to protect like an author or musician or whoever against people pirating their stuff. So like 10 years ago or something, there was a huge thing in the media about copyright when who was it? Well, it was Metallica and Napster, and so people were Metallica was saying that through the use of BitTorrents that they were basically stealing their copyright and taking money from them, and so that's an issue or an example of copyright coming into the media. A recent example is same thing. Taylor Swift had put kind of a kibosh on her music being used in Spotify because she was saying that, I think it was Spotify, that
I think you're right.
Because she was saying that they pay the artists so little, but they're creating this product. And so that's usually what most people's idea of what copyright really is. But really what copyright does, and the whole purpose of copyright in the US Constitution, is for innovation. It's to keep people from doing the same things over and over and over and over again. So it's kind of the same thing with like patents. I'm not a patent attorney or anything like that, or even copyright attorney, but the whole point of patents is to spur innovation. It's not really to stifle people or to make sure that people are getting paid. That's not really the intention. What the intention is so that we don't become a stagnant society where everyone is just producing 52 Shake It Off songs, and so really what that does is to say, okay, so we have, for example, The Great Gatsby, as long as there's that copyright, which I'm not sure, I think it's like 100 years or something, I'm not quite sure for books, and then it becomes essentially a Creative Commons thing. But one of the cool things about copyright law is, or fair use, is like, how are you transforming that? So, so in a way it is to protect authors and to protect creators so that people aren't just taking your material and saying it's their own. But it's also to create, like, to help society on a large, so that we're actually innovating, we're creating, and we're not becoming stagnant.
Okay. So Grace then did a follow-up of like, how would you apply that in the classroom? I think she I know a bit about my followers, but
Okay.
I think Karen is a teacher here in Iowa. So Grace maybe as well. I don't very remember. Sorry, Grace. But yeah, how would you apply kind of like that copyright to the classroom?
Okay. Yeah. So, how would you apply a copyright to the classroom? Well, again, a common, I guess, misconception for the classroom or for teachers is this idea of fair use, which means that you can have a copyrighted material and then you can use it as long as it's for educational purposes.
Mm-hmm.
But what can happen with that idea is that either you have one teacher who thinks that educational purposes can really be anything. Like, I think an example in the book that they gave was if you just showed The Lion King in their classroom for like a
movie day or something?
movie day, then it's okay because it's educational use. And that's not really it. That's not under fair use. Or you have teachers who try to have very strict ideas of what educational use is, and it's a lot more lenient. And one of the problems with fair use, to answer, I guess, Grace or
Grace asked
Karen, okay, is one of the problems with that is that it's difficult. There's no like hard, fast rules. It really does depend on how you're using this in your classroom.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing is transformation. How are you transforming this material and creating something new? So, for example, I can't remember if this is from the book or if this is just an example, but if, for example, you had your students read The Great Gatsby, I'm not sure what she teaches, but if you had the students read The Great Gatsby and then you wanted to incorporate, you wanted them to reimagine what that would be like in modern times. So you wanted them to put Facebook posts and Twitter posts, and you wanted them to reimagine them talking in modern day language. That would be fair use, because you're taking the information from The Great Gatsby, which is actually pretty similar to how we talk now, but you're reimagining what Daisy would say, or you're reimagining what Jay Gatsby would say via Twitter. So he only has 152 characters, so I mean, he obviously has to be like, in today's modern language, he might be like, you know, what's up, Daisy, versus what they actually say in The Great Gatsby. So that would be an example of how you can incorporate, I guess, copyright or fair use into your classroom.
Okay. So this is a question for me, and then we have a couple more, but so you're talking about like The Great Gatsby or like The Lion King. So, and I'm not a teacher, I don't know anything about teaching, but like, so let's say you're an English teacher and you choose all of these books to talk about, to utilize them in your classroom, does that require anything? Is that part of fair use if you're using that, or is it only if you're using it to, like you're saying, to kind of reference something else that you need to give credit? So if you're trying to like teach, I don't know, Shakespeare, but then you're trying to utilize things that Shakespeare has said, like you have to give him credit for that, or?
So if I understand the question correctly,
I know it didn't make a lot of sense.
Is so like, let's say I guess just to see if I understand. So you're saying, like, let's say you're a 4th grade teacher and you're doing reading time and you're having your students read Harry Potter. Are you asking if they can just read Harry Potter without having to give credit, or are you asking if they wanted to do a activity surrounding Harry Potter? So like if they were going to make butterbeer and talk about
butterbeer.
That's what it's called.
No, I know. It sounds
and that's and an activity surrounding that.
Yeah, so I guess are those different in the classroom, or are they the same? Because I mean, how many books obviously do you read a year? Do you need that? But like I've taken classes where the book is compiled of like 3 other books. So I know that each chunk of that book that they took from elsewhere has to be copyrighted. They have to have permission to utilize that. So I didn't know if like with Harry Potter, if you have to then have permission to use it. I mean, I can't imagine how you would ever do that.
No, I mean, so again, I'm trying to answer your question. So like if you have a book like a textbook where they've taken chunks from out of other books and then they compile it into one book.
Mm-hmm.
And they sell it like that?
Yeah, so I have a book.
Like a loose leaf?
Yeah, it's like a biz ad book. And so it's got a chunk from like a Harvard business book. It has a chunk from, I think, a Northwestern business book. And then a chunk of text from, I don't know, Drake University. I don't remember what the third one is. But in the beginning, it says, like, all the copyright stuff for each part of the book.
Okay. So that's covered under copyright law.
Okay.
So that would be a copyright. They've already taken care of giving, I guess, permission. Mm-hmm. Also, with that, they probably paid like a fee or a licensing fee in order to be able to use it. So again, I just want to make sure that copyright isn't just about giving permission.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to like pay a licensing fee. Like it's quite complicated. It just depends on what you're doing in the classroom. So the Harry Potter example in the classroom, or what you were saying, just to read the books, no, because you're just reading a book. Like, you've paid for the books. So that's another thing that teachers sometimes have to watch out, is that you can't like just make like 50 copies of Harry Potter and distribute them to your students. Again, it depends on the licensing agreement that your school might have in order for you to do that.
So you would have to get a license to
potentially, yeah.
So Karen wants to know, so this is kind of where we're talking now, because I don't want to forget that people are watching us.
I wanted to finish answering
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so then, but the other example where if you had students making butterbeer and then you're going to somehow incorporate Harry Potter into that lesson, that would be transformative. You're taking the original content and you're making it your own.
Okay.
So then you wouldn't have to get permission from, I can't remember her name, but you wouldn't have J.K. Rowling. Yeah, you wouldn't have to get permission from her in order to do that.
Okay.
So what's the other question?
So Karen wants to know, and then I have to scroll back up because someone else asked a question we haven't answered yet. So even if you are a small classroom in a small town, do you need to get permission to use things that are copywritten?
Yeah. So copy.
Very matter of fact.
So copyright is covered by everything. So like every jurisdiction, every state, every place. So it doesn't matter how small, big your school district is, and it really actually doesn't even matter what your, like, the material that you're doing. It really comes down to how are you using the material in your classroom. So I guess what I would say to Karen is just to make sure for her to think about how she's using it. And I had written some notes down because I wasn't quite sure what people had asked, but I wanted to, some of the tenets of fair use I wanted to make sure if someone asked is, so these again are not steadfast, but so the purpose of the use, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount used, and then the market impact. So one of the things that you want to look at is, does the, when you do whatever it is you're doing in your classroom, how is the cost to the copyright holder less than the social benefit? So, a small school, the social benefit probably outweighs the cost of the copyright. So it probably is, you're probably not going to get into too many issues, but it doesn't matter like the size or even what you're doing. It's just really comes down to how are you using the material in your classroom.
Okay. I've lost my questions. So Michelle asked, and this was a while ago, but everything else kind of obviously followed what we were talking about. She wanted to know, she's currently a student, are there things that she should think about when using books for references and essays? Like, is that like just referencing them, or is, obviously you can copyright? There was some girl who stole a whole chapter or something. Is that copyright?
Yeah, well, that's plagiarism. That's more of getting into issues of plagiarism, but it can also get into issues of copyright. So, because this is you said you had a lot of authors?
Yeah, quite a few authors. I put on my Twitter.
Again, this is not legal advice, but there was a student, a high school student a while back who had lifted chapters, like a whole half of her book. So she got this huge advance. I think it was like $500,000, which is, for you authors out there, know that never really happens. But it had came to light that almost all of her book half of her book was taken from, and I'm trying to think of the author. She wrote The Princess Diaries.
I know the book. I can't think of
who that writer is.
No.
All right, so the person who wrote the book, she wrote The Princess Diaries, and she, the girl who wrote her own book, the high school student, it came to light that she had taken almost half, like the plot, the characters, words verbatim, and that would be an issue of plagiarism, but also an issue of copyright. So it was kind of Meg Cabot. So she had lifted all the stuff from Meg Cabot, and so you have kind of like two issues right there. You have plagiarism and you have copyright.
Okay.
And so they were able actually to stop the sale. Well, so she got to keep her advance, but they stopped the publishing of the book because not only did she plagiarize, but she was also infringing on Meg Cabot's copyright. So again, it really depends. With essays, you just really want to make sure that you're citing, you're giving credit where credit's due.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get into issues of plagiarism. It's doubtful that you would get into issues of copyright because you have to look at, again, how much are you using. So if you're just using a quote or you're using a sentence or you're using a phrase,
mm-hmm.
you're probably not going to get into copyright issues. If you're taking a whole textbook and you're saying that I wrote this, then you might be getting into issues of copyright. Another thing to kind of bounce off of that is with the whole Meg Cabot thing is that there's also been circumstances where people have, like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, you would say, hey, isn't that a copyright thing? But one, her copyright has now is no longer in existence. So it's gone to Creative Commons. Yeah. I think it's like 100 years, I'm pretty sure.
I can probably look where you're talking.
But also, it is different enough that it doesn't really matter. So it's not the same book. It's not the same context. It's not the same concept. So it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same, but it's different. So I think for, again, you authors out there, when you're like, hey, this is a great idea. I know that in young YA, there's been a whole movement now of, again, transforming stories, retelling stories that are out there. I know that Dorothy Must Die is a book out there right now that is telling the story of the Wizard of Oz from a young adult perspective. I think Greg, I'm really bad with names here, but he had wrote Wicked.
Okay.
Again, that would be, you're falling in a couple of things, but that would be transformative enough, retelling the story, reimagining the story, because there's only so many stories. I mean, even Harry Potter, you're just telling the same story. The story has already happened, but you're reimagining the story. The story is different. You're transforming it. And so then you're starting to fall out of copyright infringement because it's not the same story. But with that, I'm kind of rambling, but with that, there was when at the height of Harry Potter, there was a German company that created a book called, what was it? Like Larry Daughter?
Yeah, it was like totally like,
yeah, it was like
Larry Daughter in the Chamber of, like, I don't know,
Secrets.
something.
Or, yeah, it was Chamber of, yeah. And so
this video.
they tried to say that it was transformative and that it wasn't the same principle, that because he was like a 14-year-old guy with blonde hair and but was a wizard and was at somewhere completely different, then it wasn't the same story. But it wasn't transformative enough. And the impact was too similar to that of Harry Potter that they were just like, no, they struck it down.
Okay. So I found, this is from Stanford University. So for works published after 1977, the copyright lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years.
Jeez.
And then all works published in the U.S. before 1923 are in the public domain. Works published after 1922 but before 1978, why those numbers, I have no idea, are protected for 95 years from the date of publication. So yeah.
So it's probably Pride and Prejudice is okay. Or yeah, like people were saying Twilight was basically I love this book. I can't think of it.
Is it Anne Rice's book or no?
No, it's Heathcliff.
Wuthering Heights.
Wuthering Heights. So people were saying that Twilight was essentially Wuthering Heights, but that essentially it was transformative enough that it wasn't exactly the same.
Right. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the classroom.
Okay.
I have a Twitter question, and then I have like 2 questions, and then we should probably wrap this up. It's been like a half hour.
Okay, yeah.
So at Alicia Kale 7, she is a teacher that I follow on Twitter. She wants to know what you think about using others' materials in the classrooms.
What do you mean by others, I guess?
Like, so like, what do you think about using like copywritten material in the classroom? Do you think it's better? I'm guessing, do you think it's beneficial? Do you think it's helpful? Like, what do you think why do you think people use that? Like, what do you think why that would be better than just using your own content?
I think because there's no way that you can get around not using copyrighted material. Anytime you create something, it's copyrighted automatically. So if you were to write a medical thriller, or any of you were to write a medical thriller, it's copyrighted the moment you write it. The moment you're done, it's copywritten.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to send it, I know some authors try to like super protect themselves by like emailing it to themselves, which is kind of pointless. But
yeah, I've heard that.
but that, then it's really copywritten. I mean, then you have proof that it's copywritten. But the moment you create something, whether it's a book, whether it's a photograph, getting an official copyright just protects you further. That's kind of expensive, but there's no way, I think, really to get around copywritten material. Like I said before, there's nothing that's new.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'd be really hard to not use a copywritten material in the classroom. I think what makes the classroom interesting is then how can you transform that? How can you inspire your students to take that material and then make it their own and put their own spin and flavor and reimagine what that would look like.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's important for teachers to really know, to really understand copyright and really understand fair use, because it's a lot more expansive than what you think. It's not just, let sites and stuff, but if you can show that it's transformative, then it really opens up how you can add creativity and fun to your classroom. Okay. I hope that answers. Who's this from Twitter?
Yeah, her name's Alicia K. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't actually know her. We're just from Twitter. But she's always tweeting about, I just saw, because I just went to look to Twitter, and she was tweeting about yelling at 6-year-olds. So she's a teacher, so she's always tweeting about that. But yeah, so I think any question that I had, we've kind of already answered. Oh, I do have one more question because I typed it out. I wanted to make sure I asked it. As a tweeter, blogger, and podcaster, I don't really think about copyright very often. How far do you think we as a society should go in order to give credit when credit is due? And that could be social media, print, it could be in the classroom, all of the above. Like, how important do you think that is?
So you're asking from your kind of through a lens of like what you do?
Yeah,
podcasts?
That, and just kind of in general, like, do you think copyright is important? Do you think it's something that, other than talking to you, this isn't a discussion I've ever had, nor have I ever seen like on Twitter or any blogs or anything of that sort. But like you were saying, obviously people are really concerned about it if they're like double emailing themselves stuff and like, recording conversations right. So they have that later. Like, do you feel like, what do you feel about it? I think
people are really concerned. So authors, if that's what you're asking, is authors, I think in particular, are very concerned about their ideas getting stolen.
Mhm.
I know that some authors will, when they're in the process of finding an agent, will try to get an agent like to sign like a non-disclosure and all this crazy stuff, and it's really not necessary. Like I said, you have the copyright as soon as you put your idea to paper, and really no one else can create your idea like you. So even if someone takes your idea, they can't tell the story the way you tell the story.
Mhm.
So there's that. But I think overall copyright is important. I think it's important to protect society, like I said, but also to protect the creator.
Mhm.
You know, you're creating this work, and you don't want someone just to like take and put their name on it. I think I think that's an interesting question though that you asked as a blogger and a podcast person,
Mhm.
how copyright impacts you, because I think it could in the blog for sure, as long as you're not. So I've seen in blog communities how people get upset if people don't give other bloggers credit,
Mhm.
if they don't say, well, I saw this on such and such blog.
Yeah.
But it probably would fall under fair use. So if you saw, like, for example, I saw something on someone's blog or something, how to make ginger beer, and I wanted to make my own ginger beer, and it's probably going to fall under, it's not going to be copyright. You're not going to be able to copyright ginger beer. But I think it's just polite when you're part of a community to say where you got this idea, unless it's technically a copywritten thing. Then I would definitely.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I think with the impact of social media, it's become fuzzy on what you can and can't do.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just watching as we're recording this. It's weird to see. Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you wanted to say with this discussion that maybe we didn't cover? I think we covered a big spectrum of copyright.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Did you have anything else that you wanted? Any questions specific to like maybe writing and copyright and how that impacts? Or?
I don't think I have any other questions.
Are your people still there?
I think they're just listening at this point. I haven't gotten any new questions, but we've been talking for like 35 minutes. And I kind of thought I had said that I thought it'd be like 10 to 15, so I think they're just listening. So I think this was pretty well. I want to thank you for coming on this.
Thanks for having me. It was really, it was a great way to do my project, but also,
most importantly.
But I've also never been interviewed, and I've never been part of
this is a vlog.
A vlog. I've never been a part of a vlog.
Video.
So.
Maybe it's just a video. I mean, I don't know. I should figure out what a vlog is. I think it's just people talking. But awesome, sweet. So thank you for coming on the Thrill List. This was fun and interesting. Yeah, I think definitely try to do this again. Maybe talking about a different topic. And I want to thank everyone that came. So we'll use names because
use first or last.
We're gonna go first. So I've got Karen, Grace, Bill, Travis, Michelle, and myself is on there. Yay, thanks, Amy. I didn't realize that. But yeah, thank you for coming and supporting and being a part of the conversation. And yes, so Resistant next week, new podcast coming out. I liked doing this, so I think I'm going to try to.
What's the website? Like, what's your plug? You should do a plug.
My plug. So, I'll just say what I say at the end of every podcast is, thank you for tuning in. You can get a hold of me on Twitter at The Thrill List, or email at The Thrill. It's not at. It's just thethrillist@gmail.com. Also, the blog, which is really long, so I always say it twice, is thethrillist.wix.com/thrillerblog. Again, thethrillist.wix, /thriller blog. Yeah, check it out. So yeah, next week will be Resistant.
You need a shorter name.
It's free. I love it. Anyways, so Resistant by Michael Palmer will be the end of this weekend, beginning of next. And then Tuesday, May 12th, not 7th, May 12th, Trauma comes out. Michael Palmer and Daniel Palmer. So go get it, buy it. I've already ordered my copy and signed up to get a signed copy. Cross your fingers. So yeah, sweet. This went pretty well. Now it's time for pizza. So thank you for tuning in. As always, read, learn, enjoy, and discuss.
So you say at the end of your podcast?
Everyone, if you listen,
It's still broadcast.
I know. I want them to know you don't listen. If you listened, you would know. Thanks. Bye.